Right, as you will gather, we're in the workshop looking at the Ariel Bantam, and I've raised the platform up because yet again I found myself stooping down to work on a bike that was on a raisable platform, and then realised how stupid I was being. So I've raised it up and it's at a workable height. Now then, what am I doing? Well, I'm grabbing a bit of time to myself to escape from the rigours of daily life, shall we say. And we're having a look at this engine in the frame conundrum. And you probably recall from my last video about this that I was looking at making engine plates and trying to use the existing mountings, the Bantam frame mountings and the upper mountings on the Ariel engine. But yeah, that's diminishing to some degree. I made a little wooden template that fits in there, and I'm rapidly going off the idea. You know, it was one of those things that I kind of needed to do. I kind of needed to see how feasible it would be. But yeah, it's got more drawbacks than it has benefits, really. And I think, quite frankly, that the solution is staring us in the face, and it's the solution that the other guys have used, that Paul and Peter have used, which is to let a cross tube into the this portion of the frame here, the seat tube if you like, to let a cross tube in that is the exact distance between the engine mounting lugs. Because on the Ariel, I don't know if I explained this before, where the engine fits into the Ariel, you've got this long bolt. It's a 1/2 inch UNC bolt. I think it's UNC. In fact, I'm sure it is. 1/2 inch, and it goes right through the frame. It comes in this side, goes through that bush in the engine mounting lug, through the frame, and then it threads in at this side. The lug on this side is threaded. So in order to use the engine plates, I would have to have a bolt head in here, or a stud with a nut on it. And it's just, you know, you're just creating friction for yourself. You're designing friction in when it's really unnecessary. And then to get to the mounting bolts to put the bracket onto the frame, well, you'd have to have that already on the frame, and then drop the engine in, and then try and get the stud through the, you know what I mean? You're getting me. I'm sure of it. On this side you've got more clearance. It would be easier to do on this side, but then you'd need a nut and bolt, because obviously there's no thread in the engine on this side. You'd need a nut and bolt going through, and then you'd kind of have to extend this back, I think, and link the two together with a welded cross tube, so that you, or a box section, so that you would have some rigidity. And I just think that it's run its course. I needed to do it, I needed to look at it, but I think it's run its course, and I'm not going to persist with it, because just to try to make it work because it was an idea that I had, I think is poor engineering, and it starts to become a vanity project, doesn't it? Because you're just, you know, you're building in problems just to use your idea, when in actual fact you should just admit that, not that you were wrong, well, yeah, that you were wrong, but you know, that it was that it wasn't going to happen, I think is probably the best way to look at it. So I think we're going to do exactly the same as what Paul and Peter have done, and we are going to let in a cross tube that is the same, exactly the same distance, the same length as the distance between the two engine mounting lugs, and then if we machine it nice and snugly, and we machine the bore to fit this 1/2 inch bolt nice and, you know, a good fit, so it doesn't rattle around. Once we've got it hung off that point, we can get the chain line, which if I just move you can see that we're almost there with the chain line. We're almost there with it. this chain. Did I mention the chain earlier? I bought this chain just to really just so I could try it. It's just a cheapie, but it does the job. So that's what we're going to do, I think. That's what we're going to do, and that will mean that we'll take some metal off the original Bantam mounting lugs. We'll bring them back. That means we can bring the crankcases back in the frame slightly. We may have to scallop a little bit more out of here. You can see I've taken a bit out there to go around that part of the subframe and around the swinging arm. We can afford to take a little bit more and come back a bit more. That will give us extra clearance at the front for our cylinder barrels, and effectively it will create a pivot point that we can make sure that we get our engine sitting in the frame where we want it to be, to get the line that we want. And if we've got a nice good fit, we can effectively move the engine sort of 6 through 12 if you like, backwards and forwards to get our chain line. And when we're absolutely happy with where our positions are, we can put a tack on our tube, our cross tube, and then it can stay like that until we've finished everything else. And just like Michael does, he tacks everything so that, you know, he can adjust and move things if need be. If later on he finds that he's worked himself into a corner, he can change things, and then when he's absolutely sure of everything, he bronzes everything. So I think that's what we're going to do. That seems to me, in my head at the moment, logical way forward. So we're going to follow in the footsteps of Paul and Peter, and we're going to put our cross tube in. And sometimes the best solution is the simplest. You know, staring at you in the face. There's a mounting point there. It's threaded on one side and not on the other. So, you know, a through bolt suggests itself as the ideal way of doing it. And yeah, simplicity is elegance quite a lot of the time, isn't it? So there you go. I think I'm going to try and get it on the milling table to put the hole through the frame. I don't know how Paul and Peter have done theirs. I don't know what machinery they've got. Maybe they've got drill presses. Maybe, judging by the look of their work, because I've seen some photographs of their progress so far, and it's really high quality stuff. They're clearly very good fabricators, so it wouldn't surprise me if they just use their hand skills and you know, just put that hole through on the bench. But I'm not sure. I don't know what facilities they've got, but whatever they've got, they've done a good job of it, and I'm going to have a go at replicating that. So there you go. One more thing that I've discovered, just having a bit of my cup of tea. One more thing that I've discovered about the Ariel engine is that it comes with the perfect cup holder. Look at that. Amazing, isn't it? Cup holders all the way back in the 1960s. You know, you think they're a modern thing, don't you? But they're not. Right, so we're going to whip the engine out, measure this distance, and then we can make the cross tuber. And I may film it, I may not. You've seen me make things on the lathe before. We'll see. Right, we're over at the bench, as you can quite clearly see, and we've got the crankcase with us because we're going to make a start on this cross tube that we need to make for our mounting. So got a chunk of EN3, which is a bit big at the moment, but not a problem because we have a lathe and we can lathe it to our heart's content. So here is the bolt that I was mentioning in the last clip, which was yesterday, because I'm doing this when I've got the time, bits at a time. Life is very hectic at the moment, and this video is probably going to take a while to get out, but that's just the way it goes. By the time you see this, what I'm talking to you now, what I'm talking to you about now rather, will probably be ancient history. But anyway, that's the bolt we were talking about that is going to mount the rear of the engine to the frame, 1/2 inch bolt, and we've got similar mounting down here, slightly wider, which I think is where the swinging arm went on the bike, but because the swinging arm hangs off the back of the engine on these things, so I think it went there. Not entirely sure, but I think so. But we don't need this one. This is going to be redundant, and there's another one down here as well that's going to be redundant. We just need this one. So we've got a thread on this side, threaded boss on this side, which is part of the casting, and we've got a steel bush, steel tube in this side with a cap-headed, socket-headed grub screw securing it, which I've never had out, so we probably need to move this. Move the engine around a bit. On this side you can see it's just slightly protruding into this gap. So what I propose to do is to undo the grub screw, knock that flush, and then we'll measure here. We'll measure between the two sides of the casting. That's the length that will make our cross tube, and then what we can do is, when we get it in there, we can use the steel bush, we can tap it through and just make it lovely and snug, so that when we're lining the engine up in the frame and we're moving the cross tube in the frame, in the seat tube, to get the engine in the right position, once we've got it in the right position, we know it's right and we can tack it. We know we haven't got any headache between the engine and the cross tube that we're playing with, because we've snugged it up on here. So that gives us a little bit of an advantage, I think. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is try and move this. But as I say, I've never had this apart before, so I needn't have worried. It's loose. It is a bit rusty, but yeah, it looks as though it might have been out recently. The aluminium's a little bit crumbly around the edge. Let's not cross thread it, because that would be counterproductive. Right, I'm going to get something to tap that with. If it's completely stuck, we'll leave it for now, because we've got other fish to fry. So, just going to give that a wee tap and see if we can get it to go flush. If we can't, it doesn't matter. I can do it off camera. No, that's not moving. That is in there, as our transatlantic friends would say. So we'll leave it for now, and we'll just measure the gap between the two castings. Make a note of it. Where's my notebook? Oh, excuse me, I'm going to be in your way. Oh, come on, notebook, don't do that. We will make a note of it, and we'll go from there. Make sure we're nulled out. Just using the cheapy digitals. Good enough for what we're doing. 76.84. Try it in a slightly different place, because there are some surface irregularities going on. Okay, we'll make it 77. We'll make it 77 initially. So cross tube, let's write this down otherwise I'll forget. L equals 77 millimeters, and we're working in new money as opposed to pound, shilling and pence, because the lathe is calibrated in new money. So 77, and then we just need to figure out the diameter. Let's have a look at the bolt, which I think is 1/2 inch, but it will be a little bit under, particularly because I buffed all the coating, all the plating off of it, because it was rusty. so it'll need to be replated. We'll do this in new money as well. So 1/2 inch is getting on for 12.7, and we've got 12.46, 12.45, 12.46, 12.47. Make your mind up. Okay, so if we make the bore in our tube 12.5, initially that will be fine. We'll have a nice snug fit on our bolt. We won't have any headache. We won't be worried about the engine. You know, similar to what I was saying before about it playing it, causing us error with our alignment. That should be good. And then if we get the bolt plated later on, we can always run a 500,000th reamer through the cross tube once it's installed in the frame, if this comes out after plating to be a bit tight. Hopefully you're following along with the mumbo jumbo that I am uttering. I think you probably are. So wall thickness wise, we don't want to go bananas because well, we need enough wall thickness to support the engine obviously, but we don't want to go mad because the minimum, you know, the least we can take out of the seat tube, the better. I think we're going to drill a hole through it, and we don't want to, you know, we don't want to be taking out too much metal. So let's go and measure up the seat tube. I'll tell you what, I'll do that and I'll come back to you. Right, I've measured the seat tube and it's coming out just under 29 millimeters, 1.13 something inches. So I think it's 1.1 because there's paint on there. Obviously we're getting the thickness of the paint as well, either side. So I think it's an inch and an eighth. Get me teeth in. 1.125. So if we use the 29 millimeters as just a rough kind of gauge, I am going to give a wall thickness of just over 1.5 mil, and I'm going to use a 16 millimeter diameter on my cross tube, which I think is okay. Kind of gives us 13 mil per side to play with when we're going through the seat tube, there or thereabouts. Obviously I'm running backwards and forwards between metric and imperial, but that's because most of the kit I've got to work on it with is metric, and obviously it is in inches, so the parts, that is, being British and 1960s in origin. So yeah, that's what we'll do. Turn this down to 16 millimeters, turn it to a length of, what did we say, 77 millimeters, and we'll put a 12.5 millimeter bore through the middle of it, and then obviously tidy it up nicely, and that should do the trick. And then we can mess around with the existing mounting that's on the frame, because we need to pare some of that, if not most of that, away, and position the engine into the frame until it looks about right, and we know we're in the right place for the chain line. Then we'll mark the frame, then we're going to take it all to bits, try and get it on the milling table to see if we can clamp it down and do it on the milling table to have a fighting chance of getting the bore going through the seat tube perpendicular. So that's what we will do. So I'm going to go to the lathe. Another day in the workshop. Well, it's evening now, late evening actually, but I managed to grab an hour earlier on today. Nice little bit of respite, and made a start on our cross tube. Can't remember what it's called then. Cross tube for the rear engine mount. And what have we got? Well, we've got a bit of EN3B, and what's that when it's at home? Well, it's a fairly universal material. You will find it everywhere. A very common, popular engineering steel, and the reasons why is because as I just said, it's very useful, very universal. Reasonable tensile strength, about 450 megapascals, which is fairly presentable, isn't it? That's the word I'm looking for. Can't think. Anyway, good enough for most applications. You could make a roller out of it or something like that if you needed to. Good for welding, which is, you know, going to help us out because we do need to tack it into the frame and then we're going to bronze it up. So good weldability, decent machinability. You can see the surface finish on there is pretty good. I use carbide. I converted to all carbide a few years ago. I don't use any HSS. You've just got to be a bit careful with carbide because it can be a bit chewy if you get a bit greedy. So your depth of cuts need to be a little bit less than you would normally take on, shall we say, better grades of steel. But it is perfectly capable of producing a good result on carbide on a small lathe like this. Just for doing general work around the workshop, making stuff for your bikes, that doesn't need to be, you know, high tensile or particularly hard wearing. EN3B is a really useful material. So yeah, have some in your stock. Sometimes cold, sometimes called cold rolled. I think that's what the Americans call it, cold rolled. So yeah, you find it everywhere, like I said. Corrosion resistance is not great, so you'll need to do something with it. Paint it, plate it, blue it, black it, whatever you want to do with it. You're not ruled by me. But yeah, you'll need to do something with it, otherwise it will corrode, unless it's kept oily. And quench hardening, it doesn't really like quench hardening. It does weird things to the grain structure, and it tends to embrittle it. So not very good for that kind of thing. But you can case harden it if you need to. So for example, our fabled roller that you could make out of it, if you were mass producing them and it was more cost effective to make them out of this stuff and case harden them, then say for example make them out of EN16 or something like that, then it would be, you know, a very useful material. So that's why we've used it. There you go, bit of a waffle, but hopefully a helpful waffle. Target diameter was 16 millimeters, but I'm going to leave it a little bit big because when we put it into the frame, when I drill out the frame, I'm going to drill and ream the holes in the frame to 16 millimeters. So I want to leave this a bit big because I want a really good fit, because obviously we're dealing with wall thickness. We're not going to have a lot of contact area, so I want a good fit. So I'm going to leave it probably 2 or 3 tenths over, and then polish it back to get a really good finish. We can just put it in a collet to polish it, or maybe even friction drive it between centres. It's not going to take much. But I tweaked up the lathe last time I was using it, and it's cutting really nicely at the moment, quite accurately, despite the fact that it's as old as I am. I'm not as accurate as the lathe is. 16.4, and I turned this a good few hours ago, so it's stone cold now. 16.4, 16.4. So I'm really happy with that. It's better than I thought it was going to be. So I'll probably take another tenth and leave it at 16.3, and then, as I say, we'll polish it back as and when we need it. But we need a hole through it now. We need a 12.5 millimeter hole, so I'm going to bore that not quite to size. I'm going to bore it under size, then part it off, and then I'll finish it off with a brand new 12.5 cobalt drill bit in a collet. A nice concentric on size hole, and it should hug the bolt nicely and do exactly what we want it to do. So that is the next order of operations, but I'll probably do that tomorrow now because I'm getting a bit tired, and yeah, I don't want to ruin it when I've, you know, made a fairly decent start on it. Top tip as well, always have a micrometer with your nearest city written on it. I think Tweedy's got one with Basingstoke written on it, I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm definitely getting tired because I'm talking a right load of old rubbish now, aren't I? Enough of that, man, enough of that. We'll turn off the lights and we will call it a day. Okie doke, that's us. Let's have a look at the progress that we've made. So we've made our cross tube, that's the bit that's going to go into the frame. Plenty of wall thickness, plenty strong enough, that's going to do the job for us. And I managed to get this bush out of the crankcase, but it took quite a bit of heat and it took quite a bit of persuasion, and it came out not in the best of conditions. And I've mic'd it up and it's all over the place. It's not round, and there's sort of bits being ground out of it, I think, where it's probably got stuck in the past. So I've made a new one of those, so that could go in the bin. So here's our new bush for the crankcase, made from the same bar as the cross tube. So let's put it all together and see how it will work on the bike. Let me just move you a little bit so you can get a better view. There we go. So little bush goes in there, lovely fit. Then we've got our cross tube, which will obviously be fitted to the frame, and this moves. I mean, we can undo the grub screw, we can move this to give us clearance to get it in and out of the frame. Bolt fits through. It's a nice fit. That will be pushed up to make it nice and flush and take away any headache. And then the grub screw, once we get the spacing in the frame right and the engine in the right place, obviously the grub screw will hold all that securely. I'm not going to tighten the bolt all the way in because it means getting another socket out, but you get the idea. That will be bolted up and holding the engine into the frame. And then effectively my hand is the seat tube on the bike, and the engine will be suspended at the rear from the frame, and we'll put the front mounting on, and that will be the engine in the frame. So I've not figured out the front mounting yet, but I've got some ideas in my head. We've heard that one before, haven't we? Got some ideas in my head, but yeah, that is the general idea. So that's pretty much as far as we're going to go on this video, I think. I'm out of time. I appreciate that all I've done is made a couple of tubes, but it's a bit of progress. It's a little bit further forward. So that is where we will leave it. Right guys, as I said on the previous clip, that is it for this one. Completely out of time, and yeah, need to go and do some other things, but it's been nice to be back in the workshop for a couple of hours and just have a bit of respite from everything else that's been going on in the real world. Now I know all we did was make a couple of tubes, and you may think that, you know, I took a lot of care and paid a lot of attention to what were simply a couple of tubes, but I find that if you you know, if you make everything, even the most benign, smallest of parts, to the best standard that you can, you have a lot less problems further down the line when you're trying to fit everything together. So I'm very pleased with how they came out, and it is a little bit of progress towards moving this project forward. Thank you very much indeed to my brother Carl for sending me this. This arrived today, the battery powered ratchet of the charger. Never had one of these before. I've got a pneumatic one, but never had a battery one, so looking forward to getting that involved in some of the work that I do in here. And he also sent me this, a Haxby Shed pen. You know, no well-equipped workshop should be without one, apparently. So thanks very much, Carl. It's hugely appreciated, and yeah, I will definitely put them to good use. Right, that's it. I don't know when I'll get back in here again. When I do, hopefully we'll be making the hole for the cross tube to go in, and finishing off that job, getting the engine at least hung from the rear so that we can start looking at the front engine mounts. So that will be good. That will be a real turning point, I think, in getting this thing moving. As ever, thank you very much indeed for watching. Thanks to all of my subscribers, new and those of you who've been with me for a while. It is massively appreciated, and it makes a huge difference. So thanks very much. And of course, as ever, if you're not subscribed and you found us, please do consider hitting the button, ringing the bell, and joining the gang if you like. So it just leaves me to say, mind how you go, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now. Oh, Happy New Year, everyone, if I don't see you before, which I probably won't. So Happy New Year. I wish you the absolute best for 2026. Let's make it a good one. Bye for now.